Hi, this is my presentation on my unit and scope sequence and lesson plan. So to briefly just go over my days here, I chose first grade and the standard is 1.9. The student will investigate the passage of time and tell times to the hour and half hour using analog and digital clocks. Some major concepts are learning how to tell time on an analog and digital clock, knowing what the hour and minute hands are on an analog clock, telling time by the hour and half hour on an analog clock, and knowing what side minutes and hours are on a digital clock, and telling time using a digital clock. Day 1, super easy and simple. I just go over what an analog clock is, and the students will make their own analog clock, not labeling anything, because they will label later on. Day 2, they're learning about the hour hand on the clock, and a good strategy that I learned in school is that the word hour is short, so the hand on the hour clock is short. And I will teach them about the hour hand on the clock and go over what that is, and then they will label their hand on their clock, and then they will practice telling time by the hour. And then they will just complete an exit ticket at the end. Day 3, they're learning about the minute hand on the clock. So since the shorthand is the hour, and the word hour is short, the word minute is long, so the long hand is the minute. They will just complete an entry ticket so I can see what they know and what they need to know. I will explain what the minute hand is, and they will label their minute hand on their clock. And they will work on a worksheet using minutes, and then they will just complete an exit ticket. Day 4, they will use their knowledge of the hour hand and tell time by the hour on an analog clock. And for the beginning of the class, they will have a bell work, and it's just telling time. I will draw a clock on the board and have a time on there, and they have to tell the time. So the teacher will bring out the analog clock again and explain that each number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is an hour. So from 1 to 2, that's an hour, 2 to 3, that's an hour, and so on. Students will work on an around the room activity that they will work with partners, and there will be clocks around the room with different hours on it, and they have to write down the hour on their worksheet. And then at the end of class, they just discuss what time they got for 1 or 2 clocks. And then they can also collaborate with other students, and they can ask questions and say, well, you got this time, how did you get it? Day 5, they will tell time by half an hour, so like from 1 to 1:30, that's half an hour, and from 1:30 to 2, that's another half an hour that has passed. They will have a bell work activity. The teacher will bring out the analog clock again, that repetitiveness, that way they know this is an analog clock. That way they can tell the difference between an analog and a digital clock. And we work with minutes this time, and if they haven't already, they can label their clocks, the minutes on their clock, and explain that each number again also represents a minute by 5s. The teacher will also describe how many minutes there are in an hour, that way they know. And again, the students will work on an around the room activity with different partners, and then they will share the times that they got minute-wise at the end of class. Day 6 is they are learning that the right side of a digital clock is the minute side. So they will have an entry ticket for that, asking what side of the digital clock shows the minutes. The teacher will show a digital clock and show that the right side of the clock shows the minutes. And then the students will work on an around the room activity again using different partners, and then they will complete a worksheet individually telling time on a digital clock using minutes at the end of class. Day 7, students will learn that on the right side of a digital clock it is the hours, and they will also complete a worksheet telling time using an analog and a digital clock. So they'll just have an entry ticket asking what side of the clock shows the hours, and then there will be clocks up there where they have to tell time using an analog clock and a digital. And the teacher will go over again that the left side of the digital clock tells the hours, and I will have a digital clock to show them. And they will also again work on an around the room activity, going to each clock, telling the hour. They will work with different partners again, and that the other class students will complete a worksheet that has both analog and digital clocks on it that have times, and they need to tell what time is on the worksheet. The worksheet is down below in my lesson plan that I'm about to get to. So for the first lesson plan, chose day 1 because we had to choose day 1. This is just basically what day 1 is. They just make their clocks. I go over what an analog clock is. I show them an analog clock, and then they go make their own clocks. And this is the clock that they will be making, similar to this, and later on they will be labeling the hour hand and the minutes. For diverse learners, they can have extra time if they need it. They can watch a video about a clock, an analog clock, showing them what an analog clock is. And visual representations, I'll have the analog clock to show visual representations. The second lesson plan that I chose is lesson topic 4. This is telling time by the hour on an analog clock. Again, the student will understand and know how to tell time by the hour on an analog clock, and they will also have their clock already written down, so by the hour they will have it. I differentiate a process through readiness. The activity that they are doing around the room is based on the readiness level, and learning environment through learning profile, the way that the classroom is set up. When they're doing their activity, they can maneuver around very easily, and once they get to their activity, they can stand up if they want to, sit down while they're thinking about what hour is on the clock. Again, they'll have bell work, and for the introduction, I will just go in to explain what we're doing that day. I will talk about, as a whole class, we will talk about the analog clock again, and which hand represents the hours, and then we'll go in to talk about that the 1 on the clock means 1 hour, and the 2 on the clock means 2 hours. This is the worksheet that they will be doing in their independent practice, but they'll be working with their friends, and they'll have 3 to 5 minutes to complete each rotation. And some assessments are the pre-assessment asking questions, and then the formative is going around the room, and the summative is, or another assessment is at the end of class they share what they got, what they got when they went around the room. And some accommodations is, extra time again, having audio for some of the students that may need audio, so going around the room and having just an audio recording of my voice saying, this clock says 2 o'clock. What hour is it, or how many hours is shown on the clock? And then lastly, day 7, hours on a digital clock are on the right side, and they will also be able to tell time on a digital clock. The student will understand that on a digital clock the hours are shown on the right side of the clock. Ways to differentiate, I differentiate a process through readiness. The activity that they're doing again is based on their readiness level, and contents through learning profile. They can work however they want as long as they're working. Their entry ticket, and then just the introduction, basically saying what we're going to be working on, and then the guided practice is me explaining what side of the clock is the hour. I believe that's what we're on. We'll go over the minute side again, and then we'll also go over the hours side, and then they'll have the around the room activity again as well for the minutes. This is the worksheet that they will be working with when telling time by the hour on a digital clock. Some assessments will be the independent worksheet and what they work with their partner. And for this one, this is the independent worksheet. I would combine this worksheet and this worksheet. I wouldn't like have all of them, but I would take some from here and take some from here and combine them into one, and then that way they can show me the time that's on there, right here and there, and then that way they have the two different digital and they have the analog clock that they can look at. And then summary of assessments are the pre-assessment, the questioning, and then the around the room activity, and then their test worksheet at the end of class. And for diverse learners, they can have a quieter place to take their test or do their worksheet in if they need it. Extra time. When working with a partner, they will be given a part. If there will be audio, or I will partner them with someone who I know will help them read the clock, or just help them read the clock, or there will be audio, of course, again. This is my lesson plan. I know this was kind of quick to go through, but yeah, this is what I did. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.